Hey guys, M2 Collector here with another figure review comparison. I don't know what this is. This one is super late at night, but I want to try and get a video in because it's been a couple of days and I got some new stuff coming in from Big Bad Toy Store here shortly. So I want to be able to get this video in, and because the Mafex Cyborg Superman figure is pretty old at this point, I'm not going to do a full-on review of him. It's not really available anywhere. I just got a good deal through the shop app for him there. And we've got, though, the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Cyborg Superman. This is the gold label Target exclusive. The Revenge of the Green Lanterns version. So this is kind of the black and red suit as opposed to the blue and red, which is released, you know, kind of actually around the same time. I have not seen that one. I have not found it. I may pick it up, or I was kind of initially going to pick it up to be able to do a comparison here. But I found this one last night or the night before, and I'm thinking, you know what? I got the Mafex one. Let's do a little bit of a comparison. Now, it's not really fair to do a comparison between a Mafex figure and a McFarlane Toys figure, in my opinion, because McFarlane Toys is just not to the quality of Mafex in terms of articulation and all of that good stuff going on there. But Cyborg Superman to Cyborg Superman, I think it is a fair comparison in that sense. Now, say what you want about McFarlane Toys. They have some decent figures. This Cyborg Superman looks amazing. It looks so good. The pictures that I see of the blue and red one also look really good. I just don't have it, unfortunately. So I want to be able to show you guys those two. So let's go ahead and open these two up, and let's take some closer looks at them. Okay, so I have the McFarlane Toys Superman, Cyborg Superman, and I have the Mafex Superman figures out of the package. And they are both pretty good. They are both very different in the sense that McFarlane Toys are just not the same as Mafex figures. Mafex figures are highly articulated and everything like that. So there are some major differences clearly between the two. Now, with that being said, for a McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse figure, this has to be amongst some of their best work that they've done. It has to be, because it is fantastic. Sculpt of it is really good and everything, because, you know, you have a lot of unique parts that really wouldn't work with anybody else. So like the legs themselves basically have to be used for Cyborg Superman alone, because you get some metal pieces showing there, and then obviously the entire left leg, and then the right side, and then the way the torso is, it's done really nice. We get a nice silver color in there, except for like at the elbow joint and the wrist and the ankles, but otherwise looks really good. It's not as shiny on the Mafex. As you can see, there's a little bit of a dullness to the silver, but some panel lining in there, which kind of helps bring out some of the details and things like that. So both really good figures. Again, in your collection, they're going to serve different purposes between the two, and there's a major cost difference between the two. You know, a figure that's $23.99 in Target stores, and I don't know what this originally was when it had released, but generally a Mafex figure you may be looking around $100, depending on where you may get it from and everything like that. And because it was, you know, it's an older figure now, and I just got it, I think I got it for like $130 or something like that, and I think that was considered a pretty decent price. But I'm happy to have it to, you know, kind of round out my 4 Superman from the Reign of Superman and, you know, the Return of Superman storyline there. And I'm trying to get this McFarlane figure to stand. Why am I having so much troubles getting him to stand right now? But there we go there. In terms of accessories, we're talking some major differences between the two. So for the McFarlane Toys, we get one extra set of hands. So for the right, the robotic cyborg hand there, we get a finger point hand, and then for the left we get a fist. So he just has kind of a cyborg fist and then an open hand for the left. The Mafex figure comes with a lot more. We get 4 extra sets of hands. So we got the flight hands there, we have the open relaxed hands there, we get the wide open hands there, and then here we get the same cyborg pointing finger. And then for the left we get another fist, although his thumb isn't clenched as much, which I don't understand the point of that, because it's like, it's not quite a grip hand, so it's just kind of there. And then we get like this hand cannon thing, this blaster, so you can actually get, oopsie, you got these effect pieces that don't seem to want to port in there very well. Do they go in a certain way? kind of. So that would have helped if I would have paid attention to that. I guess you wouldn't really have them blasting off both at the same time, but you do have to put them in a certain way. So obviously I'm learning that there. So we get way more accessories with the Mafex version, and I've lost some hands. I'm going to have to go through and find those and pick them up. But let's go ahead and get in for a closer look at the two. So McFarlane Toys, you know, is 7-inch scale, 1/10 scale. Mafex is a 1/12 scale, so more of a 6-inch versus a 7-inch. So that, you know, obviously the size difference there. Let's get that out of the way. The cool thing that McFarlane did here is they actually sculpted the Superman logo on his chest, whereas on the Mafex version, while the crest of it is sculpted on the Cyborg side, it's essentially just painted on. They didn't sculpt the S or anything like that. So McFarlane wins there. But McFarlane's just not going to win in terms of the articulation. And one cool thing here is there's a big hole there on his left leg. But because of that hole, at the same time, we only get a single jointed knee in there, which kind of is a little unfortunate. The way Mafex did it there is they kind of did the hole, but they just have, you know, it in there because they kept the double joint going in there. So there is a little bit of that difference there. But otherwise, sculpt, I mean, it looks pretty good. One thing that Mafex did is you see this wiring cable out there. It kind of sticks out and you could kind of see through it. Whereas that cable was sculpted here on the McFarlane, it does not stick out. So it's all just kind of a clean sculpt in there. And then, of course, black and red suit versus blue and red. And then the cape is not nearly as big on the McFarlane toy. So you could see it doesn't drape down as far, it goes about mid-calf. Whereas on the Mafex version, it goes down much, basically to his ankles. And we get a much wider cape going on here. And I don't know if Mafex has done this or not, if they've printed anything on their capes, but there's no Superman logo on this one. So for those of you guys that have the regular release Cyborg Superman, let me know down in the comments below if the red cape has the Superman logo on the back or not. I think he's done some that have had that, but this one doesn't, and I don't know if that was specific to the Revenge of the Green Lantern storyline, to where maybe he doesn't have the Superman on the back of the cape. So there is that difference there, of course. But otherwise, the designs of them are, you know, obviously very similar, and they kind of do the same thing, a little bit of blue paint in the hair to kind of bring out the details. So it's pretty good. Oh, and then one thing that is better on McFarlane, they sculpted like the neck, shoulder, and neck area as the Cyborg piece there. But on the Mafex, he has just a standard neck. So they did not sculpt any robotic parts in there, unfortunately. So there is the big differences there. But now let's go ahead and jump into the articulation between the two. Okay, so articulation, we'll go ahead and tackle the McFarlane Toy Cyborg Superman first. So, looking up, he can actually look up a little bit there. So, flight poses, he can somewhat. I guess that long hair does kind of get in the way there, so just a heads up on that. It's on a ball peg, so you can pivot the head a little bit there. His hair is super spiky, by the way. Be careful, because it's poking the hell out of me. And then, of course, rotation in that head sculpt. And I really like the way they did the neck. Really wish Mafex would have done that. The arm you can get to go straight on out like so. Here in typical McFarlane style, we have the faux butterfly joint in there. This is just a plastic ring that kind of helps fill the gap on that long ball peg that's in there. So that's how you can kind of get the movements going around like so. So going back a little bit, and then you're not really going to get any crossbody really going in there. So there's not a huge amount of function to it. You got the upper bicep swivel there, double jointed pinned elbow. So McFarlane Toys does have pins, so you get that much bend there. And then wrists are on a ball peg, so you could hinge it and swivel which any which way that you're going to need to do on there. On the right arm, you can get to go straight on out like so. Full rotation in there, of course. You also get a bicep swivel in there. Double jointed elbow gives you even more bend there, which is nice, but I wish the elbow hinge would have actually gotten the same silver paint that the whole arm and hand and everything gets, because it looks a little dull when you see that hinge portion in there not painted. And then of course wrists swivel, and it's on a ball joint, so it swivels and hinges any which way you want. So at McFarlane Toys, we got a diaphragm cut there and a ball joint waist. So using both, you can get Cyborg Superman to tilt to the left that much. Not too bad. Going the other way, you can get him to tilt to his right that much there. So that is pretty good. Leaning back, you can only go, well, it's a fair amount going back there, which is good. Coming forward, however, as you can see, it's not a whole lot. So that's where McFarlane Toys definitely is not going to win there. And then in terms of the legs, because there's no swivel, there's very, very, very little turn going on in there. Legs go out that far apart. You can basically do the splits there. It's because the hip portion is also just like a rubber overlay. You might hear people call it a diaper quite often, so that's what's going on there. So you can see it's kind of rubbery there. You can kick forward that much. You can go back a little ways there. There's, again, no thigh swivel. Left leg is a single jointed knee, so that much bend there at the knee on the left. The right is a double jointed knee. It does have pins. That was a very stiff knee there. So you get that much bend there on the double jointed knee of the right. The ankles are on a ball joint, so you could swivel the ankle around. It's a little stiff, but you can swivel them down. You can hinge down a little bit. You can hinge up a little bit. Toe articulation in there. Because it's on a ball joint, you do get ankle pivot as well. And again, even though the feet are different between the two, they do have the same articulation scheme and setup there. So that is the McFarlane Toys Cyborg Superman. Oh, last thing is the cape. It does have bendy wire. So bendy wire along the side there for the cape. You do not get it on the bottom, whereas the Mafex, the bendy wire, is on the bottom of the cape. It's also a huge cape in comparison to what McFarlane Toys gave us. But the articulation for the Mafex Superman figure is going to be pretty good. So he can look up that much there. So a little bit better for fight poses. The neck is on a separate joint, so you can hinge, you could swivel and around as needed. The head you could turn there. So that is pretty good. I just wish they had the cyborg exposed neck, which would have been really cool. So you can get the arms to go straight on out like so, which is great. You get a full rotation in that arm. You do have a butterfly joint, which allows you to get the arm to go up, come out and down a little bit. You can go back, which is good. And then you can come forward for some crossbody, as you could see there. So good crossbody. Upper bicep swivel in there. Double jointed elbow like so. Wrists are on a ball peg, so you could swivel and hinge any which way you need. There on the Cyborg side, you could pop that out. Mafex figures, they tend to do that, so you can get that to go out. You got the butterfly joint in there, so it does go back a little bit and then comes forward a little bit. Not a huge amount of crossbody, but you get some. You also have that bicep swivel in there, double jointed elbow like so. Wrist is on the ball peg, so you can swivel and hinge any which way you need. So the diaphragm and the ball joint waist get Mafex Cyborg Superman to tilt to his left in total that much. You could tilt to the right a whole lot more, as you could see, because the right portion kind of has this like exposed area where it's a little bit, it's more narrow in there, and so you can kind of take advantage of that diaphragm rocker kind of going there. You could swivel at the rocker, and then you could also swivel at the waist, which I did not go over here. You could swivel both pieces on the McFarlane version, by the way, so just heads up on there. And you can lean Superman back that much there. You can come forward that much there, so it's more than the McFarlane Toys, but it's not as much as oh wait, that's because I wasn't doing it right. You can crunch forward that much there. That is a really good amount. That's what we expect out of it, so that is really good there. The legs, we have a drop down. They don't drop down a huge amount, but you do drop it down a little bit. You can go that far apart with the legs. You can kick forward very high, which is great. You can go back a little bit. Again, there is a little bit of a thigh turn on Mafex figures, you don't get a full swivel, but you definitely get more turn than the McFarlane Toys does. We get double jointed knees, as you can see there, and then the ankles are on a ball peg, so you can swivel around, hinge down a little bit, you can hinge up a little bit. You have toe articulation on both feet, and then you do have a good ankle pivot going on there. So Mafex wins on the articulation. Mafex was always going to win on the articulation, but Mafex is not far behind when it comes to design. Now, obviously, I would prefer the blue and red Cyborg Superman because that's kind of more the classic look, but McFarlane Toys did some really good stuff with the sculpted details in the Cyborg portion, and then the silver paint is done really nicely. I mean, it's a much brighter silver than what we get here with Mafex, so it really does stand out a little bit more, I would say. You know what? I didn't spend enough time talking about the sculpt work here because it deserves to be recognized because it is so well done. So looking at the McFarlane Toys, like looking at the back, even with the cape out of the way, you can see how it all looks. Just really, really nicely done. Oh, I didn't even notice this. Look, even though he's got the suited look at the back of the arm there, the bicep. So it has some of the similar sculpt work in there. That's a really nice touch. I didn't even realize that there. So that is really cool that we got it there. But just really good sculpt work, really good paint work. I love the silver that's used in there. It's just really nice. And then kind of looking in there, just done really, really well. And again, the neck, so nicely done. And then the head sculpt looks really good as well there. So looking at the Mafex, good sculpt, sure, but it's nowhere nearly as detailed as the McFarlane Toys. Like, it's, in all honesty, it's actually kind of basic. Not that they did a bad job, because they didn't. It's just not as detailed as what McFarlane did. So you could see there, it is just kind of crazier because you have a little bit more of an open area on this guy compared to the McFarlane one. Not that McFarlane doesn't do it, it just doesn't seem as big a kind of gap, excuse me, in there. But just the Cyborg parts just look so much better detailed on the McFarlane. Just a little too smooth, in my opinion, here on the Mafex. But still looks really good, and you can see on the back there. And then one thing is, you know, they didn't sculpt any additional details on the other side or anything like that. You just get, you know, on this right leg, you know, these two silver portions there. But, you know, still good. But if I'm talking about like looks and aesthetic, I think the winner's going to have to go to McFarlane, to be honest with you guys. Both head sculpts are done really nice. It's just, you know, the brighter silver paint just looks really good on the McFarlane, and then it also helps that it's a bigger head sculpt, so it just stands out a little bit more. But they both did a pretty good job. But I may have to give it to the McFarlane, to be honest with you. Okay, so we got to do some side-by-side comparisons of the 4 Reign of Superman from the Death and the Return of Superman. So let's throw Superboy in there because he doesn't have a huge cape to kind of get in the way. So we've got Steel, the Man of Steel. We've got Cyborg Superman, the Man of Tomorrow. We've got Superboy, the Metropolis Kid. And we've got Eradicator, the last son of Krypton. So there we go. So I would love to see more Superman. Obviously, the recovery suit, the black suit, is being reissued. That's still available to pre-order. But these 3, Steel, Superboy, and Eradicator, are in stock at BigBadToyStore.com. So links in the video description below. And then the pre-order if you want the recovery suit. But I would love to see a blue and red 90s Superman in the Mafex line. My understanding is that now somebody commented that they have shown a Doomsday figure from the Death of Superman. So I would imagine a Superman figure will be coming, and I think that ties right along in with the Death and Return of Superman, even though these ones are specifically the Return of Superman, but I think it all, you know, basically works really well together. So we'll go ahead and get those 3 guys out of the way. Now I do have a comic Superman Mafex figure. This is the Batman Hush version, and one thing that I really like about this Superman figure, and it's just so well done, I like the cape more. It's not nearly as big, and they didn't do bendy wire on the bottom, and I'm okay with that. I do see the benefits, but it's not as wide, which I prefer. And then it doesn't have the things up underneath the shoulder area, which helps to kind of get it to flare out. as you could see there, because the other 3 Superman figures, they all have these, and it just kind of makes it look a little too bulky. I can understand, you know, it helps to drape it a little bit better, but it just seems like it becomes too bulky and sticks out a little too much. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but the Batman Hush version does not do it, so I'm a fan of that. I like it. But you guys let me know what you guys think of the Cyborg Superman, as well as the other Return of Superman Mafex figures. Okay, so that's the end of the comparison between the two. Not necessarily a fair comparison to compare a McFarlane Toys figure with a Mafex figure, but McFarlane Toys, you know, this thing does a lot of really good stuff. It's the biggest problem is going to be the scale with DC Multiverse, because they're a 7-inch scale, whereas most other action figures are that of a 6-inch scale or 1/12 scale. It's just difficult. It's a great looking figure though. From sculpt wise, it doesn't seem too out of proportion. Usually DC Multiverse figures, I think a lot of them have too long of legs. I don't really see that issue here. Sculpt work is nice. We get some good stuff going on, like the sculpted arm back here, kind of having some of the hoses and things like that. So really good stuff going on with this McFarlane figure. I can only imagine the blue and red version, how nice it's going to be, because it's going to be the same thing, but in the classic blue and red. Really well done. This is a Target exclusive. Good luck trying to find in stores. It's arriving with all the Superman movie figures. So the Superman, you know, Metamorpho, the David Cornsweat Superman, as well as the Target exclusive Gold Label Battle Damage Superman movie figure, and then the Gold Label Target exclusive New 52 Superman, and then there is also the Comic Eradicator figure Platinum Edition, which is like translucent bluish colors. Those all share the same DPCI, so if you go into stores, you may have it. Then the other tricky thing is, it sounds like McFarlane Toys is sending cases of Superman figures that say Superman on the box, but inside is actually Batman, the New Adventures figures of the Silver Batman and Mr. Freeze, and then there's a Platinum in there with the red suit Batman. It's all confusing, but good luck. I know it's been tricky to try and find some of these Target exclusive DC Multiverse figures, specifically the New 52 Superman as well as the Cyborg Superman, but good luck out there. But just let me know what you guys think of that there. In terms of looks alone, I think McFarlane is actually going to win this. And the one thing I also didn't mention is you get a little ripped suit right there at the corner, which is nice. The Superman logo is sculpted, whereas Mafex is just painted on. We just don't get as many details on the Mafex one. I still think the Mafex one looks really nice, but it's not as good, if I'm being honest with you, in terms of details and things like that. It wins in the articulation, which, you know, I think is going to be extremely important. So depending on what you want to do with the figure, if it's just going to stand there or whatever, I think you'd be very happy with the McFarlane Toys figure. If you're looking to pose it out and do certain things, the Mafex is the way to go. Now, this is years old. Again, high price on the aftermarket. Hopefully Mafex will do a reissue. They're reissuing the recovery suit. Why they didn't do Cyborg Superman, I don't know, but it would make sense to me if that's something that they did. Hopefully they will. If it ever does, I will share the news like on Instagram and all of that good stuff. But give me your guys' thoughts on the Cyborg Superman figures down in the comments below. If you guys like this video, please do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and as always, thank you for watching.